In the meantime, we're going to talk to Yosiah in Virginia. Yosiah wants to ask us that when we were deconverting, what were some of the strongest reasons that kept us from fully disconnecting from our religion? Is that about right, Yosiah? Or is there anything you want to add to that?
That is absolutely correct.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to steal your thunder on that. What did it for you, or what kept you in the church as you were deconverting?
So, are you talking to Yosiah or to me?
Either?
Oh, I'm
both?
Sorry. Go ahead, Thomas. Go ahead.
So for me, for the longest time, I didn't think that there was an alternative. I thought, God was real, God existed, and all this stuff. And so as I started finding things that kind of didn't fall in line completely with the Bible, I still wanted to be a part of the church community. I didn't want to be viewed differently as a non-believer. And I also had this negative stigma in my mind associated with atheists because I had grown up hearing all these horrible things about atheists and how, God is your source of love and meaning and morality and stuff. And so I didn't want to lose those positive attributes that I thought were exclusive to Christianity. And I also didn't want to lose the church community and my closeness with my friends and coworkers and family. So that kept me in for a long time. So even when I found things that would conflict, I would change my belief a little bit. So I would continue to believe in God and Jesus and the Bible, but I stopped believing in hell and demons. And I was like, yeah, that stuff is, can't really mesh well with a all-loving God. Or I believed in evolution. And so I'm like, well, it must be an old earth creationist position that's true. And so God created the world over time, and Genesis is kind of more of a metaphor. So I shifted out very slowly, but it was those factors that really kept me holding on to it. And there were even times when I kind of left the faith and stopped going to church and was on the fence, and then came back to give it one more go to really throw myself into it to try and see if God would, reveal himself more and show me the truth. And what I found is that the more I looked, the more it crumbled and fell apart. And eventually I left.
What about you, Yosiah? And then I'll go.
For me, it initially started with hearing the counter arguments against God, the contradictions, the problem of evil. It started with those easier, I guess, baseline arguments that made sense just by hearing them. But then it evolved into listening to more long-form debates about God, hearing other positions, and also just the fact that there's a million gods throughout human history. It just seems very odd that this is the unique one above all other ones. When we prove that these other ones have less credibility, it made less sense for me to say, well, this one's the special one. So that off.
Yeah.
That was very contradictory. But the biggest thing for me was the idea of hell and heaven. Having an afterlife necessarily was the biggest thing for me for the longest time. Because for me, the fear of non-consciousness kept me driving into wanting an afterlife. Even if I wasn't going to get into heaven, I would say to myself, well, hell is better than nothing for me. And that's what kept me in for a long time, that I would justify the fear of nothing as being my baseline. So I was thinking, if I was an annihilationist, maybe I would still be one. But luckily I was just regular Catholic. So
Fair enough.
Are you afraid of going to sleep at night?
No, and I feel like that's when I was younger, that fear of non-consciousness was my driving motivation. Was the heaviest one that made it difficult for me to want to leave the religion, because I didn't want to accept the idea of non-consciousness. But then as I got older, I just accepted, that's if that is what death is, then it's not really that big of a deal. It's just
you just stop.
Literally.
Yeah,
it's literally just stopping. So it's not a big deal.
It's like the quote that probably falsely attributed to Mark Twain, because every quote is, but the quote that says, I didn't exist for millions of years before I was born, and it didn't bother me in the slightest. And I feel like that's what it's going to be like after I die. And I think as I've gotten older, the more that I've experienced and done and traveled and stuff, the more I start to realize that as I get older, the thought of dying becomes less terrifying. And that, I think that's one, I would encourage you to, pack as much into this life as you can, do as much as you can, accomplish and see things, change the world, leave it better than when you started, travel, do fun things, meet awesome people, give back and just be a light to the world, if you will, just provide that positivity. But I think that as you get older, once you're 80, 90, 100, I've talked to so many people who are old who say things like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm tired. I'm ready to go. And like whether they're atheists or not, like, yeah, some people, rage against the dying of the light at all ages. And there is some fear of like, well, what comes next? But I think you reach a point as you get older where your body just starts breaking down and you're just exhausted.
I'm kind of done.
And you're just, you ache all over and you're like, it'd be kind of peaceful to just like,
not
just close my eyes and fall asleep,
I think what
I get it.
I think what kept me the longest was actually bouncing up against things that I had already convinced. Like, I'm sure most churches, I definitely know my church and every church I've experienced, we would witness to ourselves and to each other. It wasn't just enough that we believed. We needed to consistently, show each other, oh, well, here are examples of God working miracles in my life every day. Every time you go to church, you recount how, you were just talking to your Aunt Susie and your Aunt Susie prayed to have, her arthritis go away and it's gone away, or whatever the case, is. I think one of the things that got me, that I remember, I felt like I needed to hit them one at a time. I couldn't just wipe them all out. I needed to go through so many different memories that I had falsely attributed and go, well, did I though? Did I experience a miracle? Because I was there. Well, maybe I did embellish a little bit. Well,
what if other people embellished too?
Yeah. But here's the thing. It didn't like wipe all of them out for me.
Yeah.
I needed to like go back over again and again, Oh my gosh. I have been perpetuating this. And it took me a while. I remember that was one of the things that kept me back.
You think in your mind, well, how could I possibly explain all of these incredible supernatural, experiences? But then like, if you look at just one, you're like, well, yeah, that one's easy to explain. And you look at another one on its own. Yeah, that one's easy to explain. But in your mind, there's still this absolute mountain of supernatural evidence. And yet all of them are built on a house of cards. And you poke a little and...
Well, they don't all fall down, though.
They don't all fall down.
You check through.
You have one and it crumbles, and then you look at another and it crumbles, and you look at another and it crumbles. But then if you go back and you're like, but I have all this evidence, and you're thinking about all these that are crumbled, but in your mind, they're all still solid,
Yeah, and there's guilt and shame and weirdness, I can only imagine. We didn't speak in tongues often at my church, but could you imagine speaking in tongues for 20 years and then being like, but why was I doing that then?
What if that was fake?
What if that was just me? Like, there is a hill that you got to climb over. That's funny for people on the other side or people who, but like, holy crap, that's a big deal. Anyway, Yosiah, thank you for calling in.
Oh, you're welcome. I hope you guys have a great day.
You too.
Take care.
Oh, that was fun.